Topic of our discussion is community services and PR pathways through community services courses. We have lately received a lot of inquiries related to this course, so we are just here with session. This will provide you information related to all community service course, options through community service occupations. We will discuss, few occupations which are there, their assessment criteria, point system, and state or regional nomination requirements. Now, as we are speaking, there are few requirements that are still being updated. Most of the states are in process of updating their requirements. A lot of them have already done that. So the requirements that I will be discussing will be, like the latest ones. So you can, if you have any question related to community service course or any question related to PR pathway through it, you can leave that in comment section of Facebook, or if you're watching on YouTube or on LinkedIn, and I will take questions at the end of this session. So we will be starting this session soon. Just allow 1 minute so other people can join in as well, and I'll be starting it soon. Facebook, or if you're watching on YouTube. Okay, so yes, everyone. So let's get started. Just to introduce myself once again, my name is Ehsan. I'm registered migration agent at Aussizz Bankstown, and I'll be discussing community services and PR pathway options today. So let's get started. I'll open a presentation sheet so you can see the information there as well. Okay, so I hope everyone can see screen now. Okay, perfect. So today the topics that I'll be covering are popular occupations after you study community services courses. So once you complete your studies, what are some popular occupations under which you can get your skills assessment in? And then what PR pathways you have through those particular occupations. And then, of course, at the end, there will be a question and answer session where I'll be taking your questions. If you have any question, you can leave questions in comment section of Facebook, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave comment there, or same for LinkedIn as well. So key occupations outcomes related to community services are welfare center manager. This is the one which is in the long-term list. Others, welfare worker or community worker, disability services officer, family support worker, residential care officer, and youth worker. They are also there, but they are in short-term list. So that's why you can see ST as well in front of them. Now, what PR pathway looks like in those, I'll come back to those occupations and I'll discuss those in details, but just to give you a highlight. So there are two ways generally through which you can get PR. So one is general skilled migration, which is subclass 189, 190, or 491. If your occupation is in long-term list, you can go for 189. If it is in short-term list, you'll go for either 190 or 491. For employer-sponsored visa, you have an option of 482, 494, or 186. So these are the two pathways that you can take for these occupations. Now, you need skills assessment for GSM. You have to lodge expression of interest. So eligibility requirement for 189 is that you should have minimum 65 points. For 190, it's 60 because you get 5 points from state. And for 491, it's 50 points, and you get 5 points from 15 points from regional body. Then you on top of that, after meeting the requirement, you have to meet some additional criteria from each state, which I'll be discussing in later half of my session. And you must receive an invite, and then only you can lodge the visa. So this is a general process for general skill migration. On the other hand, for employer sponsorship, skills assessment is mandatory when you're going for 186 or 494 visa, or if it is specified for your occupation. Then you should have enough work experience, which is 2 years of full-time experience if you're talking about a 482 visa, or 3 years if you're talking about 494 or 186. Now, 186 also has 2 streams. You must have an employer to sponsor you. So like in skilled, you need state to sponsor you. Over here, you need an employer to sponsor you. And they have to do, employer has to lodge the SPS and nomination application, and then you can lodge visa application. So this is the general, idea of 2 visa and how, the few minimum requirements for these visas. Now, another question, which is relevant to this is that why, you should create career in this sector. So this is a high job growth sector, and what we have seen with our clients or with the available data that there is a genuine skills shortage in this area, which means after you finish your qualification, you will have good chances of getting job in these sectors, and that job can then lead you to extra points or meeting state or regional nomination requirements. This is more like a recession-proof industries. It's not a seasonal industry in other way. So, and it's funded by government. So, which means that this will, government will retain it. On the other hand, it's not like, if economy is going down and this occupation will go down with that as well. It's not like that. Now, entry requirement, another reason is that entry requirement to get into community worker or this is very less. It's not that high as compared to other high-end occupations. Okay, so generally, while you are studying, you can start working in this sector. But yes, at that time, you might not be able to work at required level. However, you can still get into a community service or aged care worker, or you can get jobs in NDS providers. So that will help you to build your experience and later on get into get job at required level as well. Now, of course, it has good pay scales, and you get a lot of satisfaction working with people with disabilities or elder people. So you can have all these benefits of going into this industry. Now, coming towards step 1, coming back to the point and what options you have for PR through this. So first occupation is welfare center manager. Now, for welfare center manager, it's comparatively it's the higher end occupation, because as you can see, it's a managerial occupation. You need a bachelor's degree, and some of the examples for and you can always look for an accredited qualification as well. But these are the few degrees that you can look into. Let's say masters and bachelors of community services, bachelor of community mental health, so these are few qualifications that you can look into. Now, your target should be to work or have a qualification which has more focus on welfare and community services specifically. Then English language requirement, it is IELTS or PT. You can have 7 each or equivalent, and you should have basically or completed 2 years of work experience in English speaking country, or you have completed a bachelor's or higher from a country where English is main language, which includes Australia, of course. Then there is an employment requirement for this occupation as well. So you need 3 years of full-time or part-time equivalent work experience, out of which one has to be as a manager. Now that's where most of people struggle when it comes to welfare center manager occupations, because getting job as manager at early stage of career is generally hard. But yes, if someone is already working in welfare industry for quite some time, and now they have worked 1 year as manager, they can possibly, and they have relevant qualification English, they can possibly look into this option. Second occupation is welfare worker. Now, with welfare worker, you have again, you need a highest level qualification is a diploma, and it must be accredited by ACWA. Now, if it is not accredited by ACWA, then you'll have to meet additional requirements basically, or you can have another relevant bachelor's degree over here as well. For English requirement, you need 7 each, same English requirement, like for any other occupation. If you do not, if you have AC, so the advantage of having accredited qualification is that you do not need additional work experience after finishing your studies. If your degree is not highly relevant, then you need 1 to 2 years experience depending on your profile. Third occupation is community worker. Now you can have basically diploma or higher, or you can have, of course, bachelor's degree or a higher level study as well. But the minimum requirement is having a diploma. Now again, if it is ACWA accredited diploma, you do not need work experience. English requirements are still the same as for other occupations, so which is 7 each. Disability services officer, same, you have to do a diploma or higher in similar field. Okay, and then if it has specialization in disability services, you have to make, if you're going for this occupation, the specialization has to be in same field as well. Okay, now if you have relevant qualification which is not specialized, still it can be considered depending on the type of subjects or units you have covered in that qualification. But my recommendation is always to look for an accredited course, because that will give you an advantage in terms of employment. So that's why the first I've put ACWA accredited courses on top basically. Then English requirement is 7 each, equivalent in IELTS or PTE, and you need 1 year of work experience if you do not have a relevant qualification. If your qualification is not accredited by ACWA. If it is accredited, and then you do not need additional work experience after finishing your diploma. Similarly, family support worker is there with same requirements, diploma or higher with 7 each. And if it is accredited course, you do not need work experience. If it is not accredited, you need 1 year work experience. The residential care officer is there, again, same requirement. And youth worker is there, again, with same requirement. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that if you are going for youth worker, specialization of your diploma or higher education must be in, related to youth worker. Now, second step, let's say now you have completed your studies, you have got skills assessment. Now, what's the next step? So next step will be to lodge expression of interest. And these are the points that you can claim. You can claim points from your age, your English, skilled employment, education, Australian study. If you have master's or research degree or PhD, you can get extra points from there. And then NATI can give you points, or regional study can give you points. Professional year, there is no professional year in this, so you will not be able to claim those 5 points. And then, of course, if you are single, you can claim points. Or if you have a skilled partner, still you can claim points from them. So this is a points chart. Now, over here, I would like to point out to one particular thing, which is skilled employment, because that's where a lot of people generally have doubts or questions. So with skilled employment, it has to be at required level, and it must be post qualification. So if you are working during your study and you do not have any qualification in same field before that, generally that experience will not give you points, because it will not be considered at required level. So now coming towards step 3. So let's say you have points, you have skills assessment. Now which state to apply to? Because as we know that most of the occupations or almost all of the occupations are in short-term list, which means you'll have to get either a state to sponsor you or a regional area to sponsor you. So this is a list which I have made now because of many recent changes. My apologies in advance if few of the things are, here and there or wrong or not updated as of now, but I've tried to be as much accurate as I could. And because of the current, every day new state is announcing their requirements. So all of these things might not be accurate, but I have double checked it myself, and most of these will be accurate as of now. So welfare center manager, so NSW, I've put all occupations are, to be announced because NSW recently announced their, basic eligibility criteria, which basically tells us that someone who is lodging 190 or 491 must be living in NSW or offshore. It's 6 months for 190 and 3 months for 491. In addition to that, there will be work experience and minimum points requirement against certain occupations. So that is another thing that we already know about NSW. But when it comes to occupation list or experience requirements against each occupation, it is to be announced. And as soon as it is announced, we'll be here with another live session and we'll discuss all those requirements in detail. So you can take a snapshot. So see, occupations are open in most of the states. So which is basically a positive, which shows that this occupation is in demand everywhere. Now, few states, let's say Northern Territory or Tasmania, even if your occupation is not on their list, so the reason we have put yes is because even if it is not in their priority list, still you can become eligible for 190 or 491 if you meet their additional requirement. So having occupation on the list is not necessary for 491 in these two states. So that's why for all occupation, if someone is living there, working there, they can be eligible even if their occupation is not on the priority list. Now, I believe you would have looked into this now. So let's move to next part, which is state or eligibility. So this is a summary that we have made. Now, starting with NSW, as I said, so for onshore, you must be living in NSW for past 6 months. For offshore, they should have continuously resided offshore for past 6 months as well. Okay. There will be minimum experience requirement for some occupations, which is to be announced yet, and there might be minimum points requirement for many occupations. Now, for 491, what NSW has indicated us is that they will be making, there will be pathway 1 and pathway 2. So unlike previous, there was stream 1, stream 2, and stream 3. Now they are going with pathway 1 and 2. In pathway 1, you will receive invitation from RDA, Regional Development Authority. So they will be issuing you invitation, but they will still have their occupation list and minimum experience and points requirement for which you'll have to wait. Pathway 2 will be invitation from NSW investment basically, where they will be directly issuing invites. Now, one additional thing we know over here for 491 is that for graduates, recent graduates who have studied and lived in regional NSW and they have met Australian study requirement while living in regional NSW, they can work experience will not apply to them. So they will have exemption of work experience. Okay. So that is really good for someone who is already studying from regional NSW or has completed their study from regional NSW. They'll not be impacted by additional work experience criteria. Victoria has announced applicant can be living in Victoria or offshore, and preference will be given to applicants on the basis of their EOI, their points, their occupations, and their earnings. So applicants living in Australia, ROI form required to put your salary there. So we believe that that will be one point of consideration. Now, again, this sector, has been in demand throughout. So you'll have good option through this in Victoria, either for 190 or for 491. The difference is for 491, you must be living in regional Victoria or offshore. For ACT, the minimum requirement for 190 is that you must have lived in ACT for 6 months, minimum 35 hours per week for 26 weeks, and you have to lodge ACT metrics. Now, for offshore applicant, they should have job offer, and they also have to go through ACT metrics. Now, ACT metrics is ACT's own point test system, where you claim points on the basis of your years of residence, your study, English, type of work that you are doing, years of study that you have undertaken in ACT, and many other variables are there and using which you can claim points. For 491, you must be living in ACT for 3 months, and work requirement is at least 20 hours per week for 3 months, and it can be in any occupation. And you have to submit metrics for that too separately. For offshore, someone living offshore, they can lodge ACT metrics if they have 3 years of full-time experience, which is at required level. Now, coming towards Western Australia. So for Schedule 1, you can claim 5 points. So for Schedule 1, your occupation has to be on the list, and you should have claimed 5 points for employment, and you should have an employment contract. Now, Schedule 2 has been more in demand, and that's the one where, a lot of people received invite last year. So if your occupation is on Schedule 2 list, you can apply for EOI while if you are living in Western Australia, or if you're living outside of Western Australia. And if you are invited, you'll have to provide a full-time job contract from Western Australia within 28 days. So that's the criteria for Western Australia. For graduates, you must have 2 years study in Western Australia and 6 months work or employment contract. Now, the requirement for 491 is also same, except for few occupations. Northern Territory, they do sponsor for 190 and 491. For 190, Northern Territory requirement is that you must have finished at least 2 years of study, and you have lived for 6 months after the study on full-time work right on a visa, which gives you full-time work rights in Northern Territory. And you have to demonstrate genuine efforts to get employment. So how many employments, they will look into the fact that how many employments you have, did you get any interview calls, or what efforts you made to get job in your nominated occupation. Working in nominated occupation is not a requirement over there. However, making genuine efforts to get employment is one of the requirements. For other residents, you must have worked there for 2 years full-time in nominated occupation and lived there for 2 years as well to qualify for 190. Now, for 491, if someone has completed 2 years study, but they cannot live there for next 6 months as a holder of a full-time work visa. So for example, someone who has already exhausted their 485 and now they are on a new student visa and they are studying in Northern Territory. Now they will not have 6 months period after they finish their 2 year study in Northern Territory. So they can go for 491. Again, you have to still demonstrate that you have made genuine efforts to get employment. Other anti-residents, if someone is someone moved before July 2020 or someone moved after July 2020, so requirement is 6 months full-time employment plus 12 months of residence or 6 months of residence in NT, depending on when they moved. South Australia, we are still waiting for South Australia requirements. So they did not announce it. I did not check in last 1 or 2 hours if there was any update, but they did not update it yet. And once they do update, or one of my team member will be here with live session. But they are, so South Australia, they have graduate pathways, they have currently working pathways, and they have talent and innovators pathway. Okay, and for 491, they have additional, if you are living and working in outer regional, they give you additional options, but we'll have to wait for updated requirements for South Australia. For Queensland, you have to basically, if you are targeting 190, you must have 80 points and proficient English, and you should have 6 months full-time work experience in Queensland plus 12 months contract. So if someone is living and working in Queensland for past 6 months full-time and they have 80 points plus they have a 12 months contract, they can apply for 190 through Queensland. Or of course, PhD graduates, they are eligible for both anyways. If someone has less points or they have not worked for 6 months and they have worked for 3 months in regional Queensland, which is outside of Brisbane, they can apply for 491 as well. Tasmania, they have Tasmania updated their requirements already, so few of the updates are here. Now, for study pathway, so what Tasmania has done is basically they have kept few requirements same, but they have added what we call priority attributes. So now they'll be looking into various factors to determine if where do you stand in terms of overall competition. So for example, if you have completed 2 years study in Tasmania, you are eligible as per Tasmanian graduate pathway, but you should have some priority attributes. Let's say, for example, if you are working in skill level, or are you working in a critical sector, or the study that you undertook, you have skills assessment in same and you are working in that sector as well. And if your partner is there, or the English you have, or the level of job your partner is doing. So these are the types of priority attributes which Tasmania has now introduced. For working in Tasmania category, there is a good thing that before Tasmania was not accepting work experience less than 35 hours per week. Now they have started accepting 20 hours per week experience as well. But with that, still you need some priority attributes. Now, there is a new pathway that has been announced by Tasmania, which is established residence pathway. So this is for people who have lived there for 3 years or more, and they meet some additional requirement as well, let's say, which are related to the type of employment they are doing, or if they are doing a business, or they have, and on top of that, if they have some additional attributes as well. For 491, study requirement is 1 year, but you should still have priority attributes. Working requirement is 6 months, minimum 20 hours per week, but employment has to be in level 1 to 3, and you should have some priority attributes. Those will be helpful. If your job is in level 4 or 5, then you must have priority attributes. Now, just to give you that idea again, now priority attributes are, defined by Tasmania, and they include things like which occupations you are working in, how many years you have stayed in Tasmania, what sort of job you have done in Tasmania, are you working in related field or not related field, are you working in critical role? So these are all the priority attributes that Tasmania is looking into. Then family in Tasmania is there. Established resident pathway is there, where you have, if you have lived there for 2 years, and in addition to that, you are meeting employment or business requirements. And of course, they will look into priority attributes there as well. And then there is a small business owner option, which now is changed, that you have to run a business for 12 months. And however, they have reduced the income requirement to 80% of TSMIT, which is so 80% of 53,900. So if you are running a business for 1 year in Tasmania, or if you start a new business, you can qualify after 1 year through small business owner stream. If you already started your business in the past, I think the date was before April, it's on top of my head, you will still have to meet 6 months requirement and not 1 year. So basically, these are all the states requirements with with the updates that we have now. Of course, most of the states will be conducting rounds soon. We will have more information about their requirements soon, and once they start inviting applicants, we'll have more clarity that what is the points cut off and at how many points they will be issuing invites at. Now I will take question. Before that, just to let everyone know that our new branch is open in Bankstown now. and the address is Suite 1 and 2, 12 Bankstown City Plaza, Bankstown. So if you live nearby, you can definitely visit our office. We can assist you with all migration and education related inquiries. So now I will take your questions. Yeah, so I'm just going to take questions now. Okay. Gibran, you have asked question related to 190 or 491 in NSW, and today's session is about community service. It's we are trying to take questions related to that, but just to give you an idea that NSW has not announced occupation list, work experience requirement for any occupation. So I will suggest you to wait until you have that, and then we will be here with another live session where we will discuss NSW requirements once they are announced. Sandeep has asked that if NSW has released occupation list. Not yet, but they have, NSW and all other states have received allocation, and NSW has got very their seats have been like second number. So Victoria has received 9,000 seats for 190, and NSW has received 7,160 seats for 190, which is a increase of around 3,000 or more as compared to last year. So which is a very positive news. Now, but still we are waiting for occupation list from NSW. So, Prabsharan, look, so you've asked question like related to 485. So 485 is a temporary graduate visa that you can get once you have completed, once you have met Australian study requirement and you have met for certain English, character and health requirements, you can apply for 485 visa. Now, for that, you have to complete your studies first, and then you can consider applying for that visa. If you need help with that, we do provide free first 485 visa consultation. You can reach out to us or any of your nearest branch, and they'll be happy to help you, and they'll explain you 485 visa requirements. Pratish, so if you are lodging 190 EOI, you can claim your partner points in that EOI, but you cannot claim your partner points in 189 EOI. Okay, because her occupation is if her occupation is in short-term list and yours is in long-term, you can still claim points if we are going for 190, not for 189. Sandeep, I've answered your question. NSW has not released its occupation list yet. Mahesh, 75 points. And where are you? What is your occupation? So I need to know all that so I can, give you more precise, a more precise answer. So Anjana has asked a question that dementia or aged care consultant role count as community worker. Now, look, when we are looking for experience relevance, we have to see if the duties that you are performing or the skill level is as per the required level for community worker or disability support worker or any of the community worker occupation. Now, if your roles and responsibilities are matching to those, then yes, you can claim points. But just with title, it's not possible for me to tell you if it will fall under community worker or not. Because I've got clients who are working as case workers or in different designations, and still their experience got assessed as relevant to community worker or disability services officer. So it depends on what your roles and responsibilities are and at what level you are working to check that if you'll be eligible to claim points through that or not. Sandeep, as I said, INSW has not announced its list yet, but look, in my opinion, there will be work experience requirement with few occupations, and with other few occupations, there will not be any work experience requirement. That's what I can see from what they have announced till now. But of course, we'll have to wait to see if where things are going. Prabhsharan, starting application and completing application are two different things. Yes, you can start application, but you are not eligible for 485. So you have to wait until once you complete your studies, then only you can submit it. If you want to start draft application, you can start, but it will not help you in any way. So everyone, I will like you to, I will encourage you to ask questions related to community worker, community services, or because that was a topic of discussion, and I'll be happy to answer you more on that. For other inquiries, you can reach out to us on over here or your nearest office. And I'll try to answer as much as I can, but I'll be prioritizing questions related to community service or PR options through community workers. Thank you. So Mr. Thakur has asked that aged care experience count as community service worker for skills assessment. Look, aged care experience, again, it depends at what level are you working. Okay, so are you a case worker? Are you doing all the duties which a normal community worker does? Or are you doing duties of a disability services officer, for example? So depending on that, yes, you might be able to claim points, but it all depends on the duties at the end of the day that you are performing there. So Charika, I'm not sure in what context you are asking this 35 hours question, because with 35 hours per week, yes, it is considered full-time work, but every state has different requirements. So if we are talking about Queensland, they need 12 months full-time contract. Or Tasmania, they also need a contract, which is full-time. So generally casual employments sometimes do not get considered for certain states, but for some states, yes, they can be considered. So you have to be more specific in this question, so I can help you with it. Apps has asked that if you can lodge EOI without having skills assessment. Answer is no, because you need a skills assessment to lodge expression of interest. If you do not have skills assessment, you are not eligible to lodge EOI, and if in that case you are invited, that invite will be invalid because you will not have a valid skills assessment at the time you lodge expression of interest. So Nanan, look, for Western Australia, you'll have to, if you're a graduate, you still have to find a job in related field or have a job contract to apply for 190 or 491. So since you are working in the field, yes, but you still have to basically, you still have to upskill it, work at required level so that you can be selected for 190 or 491 in Western Australia. So Sanjay has asked that if he needs skills assessment, employment assessment before lodging EOI. So look, it depends on state. So South Australia, we are still waiting for the new requirements, but by law, by immigration, do not require employment assessment. Is not mandatory from immigration side. So NSW do ask for it from ACS, and it depends on what policy South Australia brings in. But if you have post-qualification experience, 1 year, you are meeting it's relevant, you can claim points for that, and you can lodge EOI. And meanwhile, you can get your skills assessment done side by side. So I've got a few questions related to Victoria. Now, everyone, we are, of course, as you know, that Victoria just announced requirements a few days back. So we will have an idea, clear picture that what will be the cutoff once they issue 1 or 2 rounds. So please stay posted. We will, once a round happens, we will post it on our social media platforms about the cutoff points, occupations, and if you want to get clarity around that, you can always reach out to us on the details provided. So I'll take a few more questions before we finish. So Pratish, I believe you are trying to ask that if you work full-time in 2 roles, like, look, if you, there is no, there is nothing by law that stops you from working full-time in 2 roles. However, there has to be, it should make sense. It should not be against, it should be logical. For example, if you are working, let's say someone who works from 9 to 5, or let's say they work 10 hours a day for 4 days, and then they work another 3 days, 10 hours. Yes, they can work, but ultimately it has to be logical. Yes, there is nothing that stops you. Like, there is no restriction that you cannot have 2 employments at a time, and it does not affect your EOI. So I believe I've answered all the questions relevant. Now, I know that there are a few questions which were not, which are a bit, like different to today's topic. I've tried answering those as well. But of course, we will come up with another session regarding updates, and you can keep, you can like our page, and you can send us email or keep following us so you can get updated details. We once NSW requirements are out, we will be here and we will discuss all occupations with the criteria, and then we will take questions related to NSW at that time as well. So I think that's pretty much it. Okay. If you have any other question, in addition to that, you can leave us email, and we will, me or my team member will get back to you on that. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I believe this session was helpful and you got information related to community services, few occupations and PR pathways through that. And if you want to enroll in a course, or you have already finished your studies and you want to look options further, please do not hesitate to reach us on below numbers. Thank you. Have a good evening.